Explanation of Article 330 of the Indian Constitution. The Constitution of India, under Part 16, Special Provisions relating to certain classes, contains Article 330 which provides for the reservation of seats for scheduled castes, SCs, and scheduled tribes, STs, in the House of the People, Lok Sabha. This provision reflects the vision of the framers of the Constitution to ensure adequate representation of historically disadvantaged and marginalized communities in the highest democratic forum of the country. 1. Purpose and spirit of Article 330. The primary objective of Article 330 is to secure political justice and inclusiveness for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Since these communities have long suffered from social discrimination, economic backwardness, and political neglect, reservation in legislatures ensures that their voices are not silenced in the democratic process. It is not merely a protective measure but also a mechanism to strengthen the democratic structure by making it more representative and participatory. 2. Reservation of seats, Clause 1. Article 330, 1, mandates that certain seats in the House of the People shall be reserved for a. Scheduled castes, SCs. b. Scheduled tribes, STs, excluding those in the autonomous districts of Assam, and c. Scheduled tribes specifically in the autonomous districts of Assam. The separate mention of the autonomous districts of Assam highlights the unique socio-political circumstances of the Northeast, where tribal communities enjoy special protections under the 6th Schedule of the Constitution. 3. Proportional representation, Clause 2. The number of seats reserved for SCs and STs in each state or union territory is not arbitrary. It is based on the principle of proportionality. The ratio of reserved seats to total seats in a state or union territory must be nearly the same as the ratio of the SC cent population to the total population of that region. For instance, if scheduled castes constitute 15% of a state's population, then approximately 15% of the seats allotted to that state in the Lok Sabha will be reserved for them. This ensures a fair distribution of reserved seats in line with demographic realities. 4. Special Rule for Assam's Autonomous Districts, Clause 3. The Constitution makes a distinct provision for the scheduled tribes in the autonomous districts of Assam. Even if their population proportion is relatively small, the number of reserved seats for them cannot be less than their population proportion in relation to the total population of Assam. This safeguard prevents underrepresentation of these unique tribal groups, whose socio-cultural identity is protected under constitutional schemes. 5. Population as the basis of reservation, explanation. Article 330 clarifies that the population figures to be used for calculating reserved seats are those recorded in the last published census. However, due to a constitutional freeze on delimitation until after 2026, the 2001 census figures continue to be the reference point until new census data, post-2026, is officially released. This freeze was introduced to maintain a balance between states in terms of representation, despite differences in population growth rates. 6. Constitutional significance. Article 330 is not an isolated provision. It is part of a broader constitutional framework that includes Article 332, Reservation in state legislative assemblies. Article 334, Time limit on reservation, extended periodically, and the system of delimitation commissions, which determine the exact constituencies to be reserved. Together, these provisions demonstrate the Constitution's commitment to affirmative action in politics, recognizing that true equality requires more than formal rights, it requires meaningful participation. 7. Criticism and debate. While Article 330 has been instrumental in empowering SCs and STs, some criticisms remain. Critics argue that political reservation has not always translated into substantive socio-economic upliftment. Others feel that repeated extensions of reservation periods, originally intended for 10 years, reflect the continuing challenges in achieving social equality. However, defenders argue that without such reservations, these communities would remain grossly underrepresented in Parliament. Conclusion. Article 330 of the Indian Constitution is a cornerstone of India's democratic and social justice framework. By ensuring representation of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in the Lok Sabha, it fulfills the promise of inclusive democracy and equal opportunity. While debates on its duration and effectiveness continue, its role in giving voice to historically marginalized communities remains invaluable. In essence, Article 330 transforms the principle of government of the people, by the people, for the people, into a reality that includes even the most disadvantaged sections of society. The Constitution of India. Part 16. Special provisions relating to certain classes. Article 330. Reservation of seats for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in the House of the People. 1. Seats shall be reserved in the House of the People for A. The scheduled castes. B. The scheduled tribes except the scheduled tribes in the autonomous districts of Assam and C. The scheduled tribes in the autonomous districts of Assam. 2. The number of seats reserved in any state or union territory for the scheduled castes or the scheduled tribes under Clause 1 shall bear, as nearly as may be, the same proportion to the total number of seats allotted to that state or union territory in the House of the People as the population of the scheduled castes in the state or union territory or of the scheduled tribes in the state or union territory or part of the state or union territory, as the case may be, in respect of which seats are so reserved, bears to the total population of the state or union territory. 3. Notwithstanding anything contained in Clause 2, the number of seats reserved in the House of the People for the scheduled tribes in the autonomous districts of Assam shall bear to the total number of seats allotted to that state a proportion not less than the population of the scheduled tribes in the said autonomous districts bears to the total population of the state. Explanation. In this article and in Article 332, the expression population means the population as ascertained at the last preceding census of which the relevant figures have been published. Provided that the reference in this explanation to the last preceding census of which the relevant figures have been published shall, until the relevant figures for the first census taken after the year 2026 have been published, be construed as a reference to the 2001 census.